I'll make this short. While browsing YouTube, it happened that my clicking hand was directed by fate toward this somewhat older video about the demonization of Russians. And I'd like to address several points mentioned there. But before that, let me list my obvious bias. To be blunt, I don't care about Russian deaths, lives, or purported hardships. I want them out of here for good. I suppose I could be entitled to some hatred toward them, but hate them I do not. No more than you would hate a rabid beast having killed your neighbor. It has to be put down, but is it a varied object of hatred? With this out of the way, let's actually have a look at the aforementioned.
Thousands of lives and displaced hundreds of thousands. And let me be clear, the anger towards the Russian government and the state are 100% justified and deserved. It is really despicable. Even so, many have taken the opportunity to take this tragedy as an excuse to bully and ridicule people online, and sometimes in real life because of their ethnicity. A lot of people have forwarded this anger towards the Russian people themselves, and many Russians, be it in or outside of Russia, be they for or against Putin, have become demonized as a result.
Now the author of the video states that we were told not to hate people based on their ethnicity, skin color, religion, and so on.
However, it appears for many people this applies for everyone except the Russians. And again, I get it. It's a despicable, evil war and Russia is 100% the aggressor. However, everyday Russians did not ask for this. In fact, almost 1 million Russians have left Russia since the invasion of Ukraine. Sure, some of the ones fleeing probably support Putin and the war, but the majority was completely against it.
Broadly speaking, I do not support summary justice, so I do not condone attacks on random civilians based on them simply being Russian. This is the only point of agreement we have. On the other hand, I do support sanctions toward those expat Russians in support of the invasion of the Russian imperialist politics, be it deportations or public shaming. Moving on, I appreciate those who have supported our cause at least since 2022, be they Russian or not. To alienate them on the sole basis of their nationality would not set a good precedent. But the fact a Russian has escaped their regime is a very poor indication of where their loyalties lie. There are several factions within the Russian diaspora, and the anti-Putin one, alas, seems largely preoccupied with virtue signaling and not bringing anything of substance to the table. Moreover, anti-Putin doesn't really mean pro-Ukrainian. And when I say pro-Ukrainian, I'm not referring to our government, but instead to our cause of retaining our sovereignty as a nation and, more generally, standing up for the ideas which have shaped European political culture. Lastly, concerning those under the yoke of the authoritarian regime.
But they should actively protest against the government and the war. If they're not doing anything, they're complicit.
However, what a lot of people who make this argument fail to realize is Russia is not a democracy.
Protest, 99.99% of people thought that it would last maybe 3 or 4 days. But young people of Iran in general, have surprised us.
It's not even a flawed democracy like most of the Balkans or Eastern Europe. It is straight up an authoritarian dictatorship. Opposition leaders get jailed or assassinated.
Meanwhile, the escalating protests on the streets of Iran entering their 5th week. According to human rights activist news agency HRANA, 240 deaths now reported.
Recently, the state barred the upcoming opposition wannabe presidential candidate Ekaterina Duntsova from even submitting her documents to run as president, in much the same fashion as was the case with Alexei Navalny when he tried to run for president. Protesters even get beaten and jailed for ridiculous amounts of time.
Their chant, women, life, freedom. This is the first time protests have been led by women and supported by men. The slogan has given hope to so many Iranians that this time around the protest might topple the regime or force the regime to change its policies.
And aren't even given proper trials. Polls and election numbers are fudged easily because, again, one party controls the entire state and its operations, and opposition parties, like the previously mentioned case of Duntsova, aren't even allowed to register for elections. The same people who make these arguments also don't trust Russia's reports regarding their losses and gains in the war because the state is so utterly corrupt, but when it comes to their opinion on the regular Russian people, they are the holy script for their hate. The majority of Russians just want to live their lives.
Firstly, many seem quite content.
Меня все устраивает и нравится.
Путин поднял нашу страну с колен, я считаю так. Это мое мнение.
Secondly, it's not like a god descended upon poor unsuspecting Russians to install authoritarian rule and crown his chosen KGB representative. A government is its people's responsibility first and foremost. A government does not turn authoritarian overnight. And granted it has become one, if enough people do not want a government to stand, it shall fall. Otherwise, they go obediently to die in a ditch in a foreign land, occasionally succeeding in murdering some of its denizens first. These people are not victims. If they are, from a certain perspective, it's quite irrelevant. Nor are they heroes. To die heroically as a slave is not a hero's lot. Through political apathy, complacency, lack of resolve, and outright sympathy toward their new old imperialist myth, the adult population of Russia has created that which they have now. To conclude, no need to either demonize Russians or whitewash and infantilize them.